Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. My name's Mike.
Hi there.
You probably all know me, president of CAPS, and hello to everybody online too. So, you've noticed we're in a new room today. And this came about because the last 3 times we were in this building, the elevator wasn't working, and it really created problems, especially carrying heavy objects, boxes of records, and especially upright gramophones, whatever, into the room. So Bill kindly researched to see if this room was available, and it was, and it's right on the way in, so there's less walking involved and no elevators. Washrooms are more or less in the same spots. It's a little smaller than the last one, but it's kind of cozy. I see we've got the whole room filled up, which is great.
Ironically, we have more people than we've had.
Yes,
Yeah.
Bill was telling me it's a record attendance since pre-pandemic.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So that's great. Nice to see people here. And people are asking me about the parking. It's like, I don't know either, but when we pulled in here, the parking lot was roped off, and now someone's telling me that.
I moved the ball out.
Did you? The bar's up apparently. So I don't think we have to pay if the bar's up.
It said on the machine, it's free passage.
Yeah.
On the machine itself, because I went to wait and then I saw free passage.
Oh,
Bars up, said it's free.
bonus. So that's great. Now, if everybody gets a $50 parking ticket, don't blame me.
The security worst guy came past.
Okay.
After I'd moved the ball out and driven in. I sat in my car waiting to see if he would approach.
You'd be arrested.
And he didn't. He just got back in his car. and drove
Oh,
off.
great.
So-
Okay.
When'd you get back up?
Anyway, so that's what's happening there. So this room reminds me a lot of the one we used to have on the other side. It's about the same size and everything. We fit perfectly. So again, thanks for being here. And today is the last meeting of 2024 for us. The next meeting is on January 12th in the new year. So we always take a little break over the Christmas holidays. You're marking your calendars. And we normally start off by asking, do we have any new members today? And a new member came up to me today. Could you introduce yourself, please?
Everyone, go up. I'm excited to be here. I figured through Larry, who told me about the meetings. I'm very interested in antique here, and we have a no turntable as well, and had some review jobs over the years, but I'm mostly here because I'm very interested in some of the talks that I'm listening to people are giving.
That's
I'm
great.
excited to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. Is there something specific that you're looking for or you collect?
I don't collect. So just,
I don't collect yet.
Yeah.
But I do it.
And there's sort of I think it's a running joke in this hobby. It's like, yeah, when you start off, I really only need one gramophone. Right? And that's why I say gramophones are like tattoos, because most people have tattoos, start with just one and then it covers their body. And it's the same thing with gramophones, you take over the top.
Show it off and show it.
No, no, gramophones is a different story. Anyway, welcome. Hope you get to meet other people here. So the general format is we have introductions and then we'll get on to our presentation. We'll have a break. There's coffee and donuts there, and then we move on to the auction. So welcome. And if you have any questions, we'll get to it. And I'd also like to make another announcement, sort of ties into everything today. Blaine has kindly brought a bunch of records for us, both 78s and cylinders. They're on the back table there. And we ask that you not look at them during the presentation or before the break. We'd like to have you look at them at the break itself and try to limit yourself to say 5 initially. We want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to go through them. And then once people have gone through them, take them to second look with whatever's left. And you're welcome to them. Blaine, it's so kind of you to bring them in for our members.
You're welcome. Please, make sure we all go.
And I don't want to forget the people on Zoom. Do we have any new members here today? You can put up your hand or there's a way you can use emojis on the bottom. No one new?
Are they here, just ask them if they're hearing okay, if they're hearing from the audience. Are they hearing?
Oh, okay.
People on Zoom.
Mike's asked me to ask, are you able to hear us okay?
I can hear fine in Nova Scotia.
Great.
Okay.
Again, we're on a different computer system than we were in the other room. And I also want to put a plug too. Besides Bill for getting us the room, Mark also came in here this week and he checked everything out to make sure it works. So I thought that was really great of you.
Actually,
That's-
I came here, it was like 9:20 and I come in and the room is full of students.
Oh,
So I literally walk in and look at me and say, just hang on a minute. And I go over here and I checking everything out, trying to say, okay, thank you guys. I grab my briefcase and I walk out and they're looking like, the hell was that?
you're not our instructor?
Yeah,
Well, he is a teacher, isn't he?
yeah, they had no idea, but I just imagine when their instructor came, what they told him.
But either way, everything's
Everything's
similar
fine,
to
yeah.
what it
Yeah.
was in the other room, so it's all working fine.
Hello.
And- Yes, go ahead.
Lance,
One thing of note is that the volume level online is a little quieter than previously. It's not problematic, but I have to crank the volume on my computer up to the max to hear you. Whereas before it was sort of below middle volume level and it was fine. So not an issue, it's just different.
Okay.
how is it now? I just made an adjustment.
Yeah, it's okay. I can turn it down a little and see to where it normally would be.
Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to hear us better.
Yeah.
We have an omnidirectional microphone here, and when people talk in the crowd, we try to turn it around so that people online can hear them. So we'll keep trying to do that, and then if people ask questions or say things, I often try to repeat it to make sure that those online will hear it. So if you've had further problems, Lance, I know you've written me before, so keep that up. We'd love to get the feedback and make any improvements we can. Okay, today's presentation is going to be really good. It's, both Blaine and Paul talking about blue amberol cylinders, and I think you guys are the cylinder experts. Sorry?
Wax.
Wax cylinder. Oh, not the blue ones.
Not the blue.
Okay, just the wax ones.
You have
Great.
to wait for that one.
That's part two.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're both a wealth of knowledge, so I know it's going to be interesting, which is maybe another reason why we have so many people here today. And another segment we usually start off with is it's sort of like, I'm looking for da 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 da. So how about I'll throw it out to the crowd. Is there anybody looking for a part or a machine or a record or something specific that you'd like to share with the group? And maybe someone in the room or online can help you.
I've been looking for a lid for a triumph. For a model.
A lid for a Triumph?
For a triumph.
Okay. Is it a certain model of Triumph or are they all the
Same
same?
model F. I don't know if they all fit the same or not. I know I got a model F triumph.
Okay,
You need a lid for it.
so a lid for a Model F Triumph
I'd like to get the picture.
Probably seen from D on.
Yeah,
from D on, they're the same?
Well,
Yes, the same body from that point. on.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Ken. Anybody else looking for anything? Wow, you've all found your part.
Well, no, I'm still looking for more Nelly Melba 10-inch original label
give it to him.
records like the one that Mark very kindly brought today.
Oh,
So I'd like to be able to get all 7 of them, I think there are.
ah,
So,
okay, thank you. And Angela, I know we were talking, you're looking for some parts for a Victor Zero. A spring barrel?
Anybody has a spring barrel for a Victor Zero. It's, that motor is also used sometimes on a Victor One. But it's not a common one for the Victor One.
So it could be similar to a Victor One.
If somebody's got a motor that is questions, they can just send you a photo.
Anyone else in the room? Any parts you're looking for? Anything particular? No? Okay. And how about online? Is there anyone looking for a part or a record or a machine?
Yeah, I'm looking for the speed control for the Edison Ambrella 30. I've restored it, but I've got a missing 2-ball speed control.
The governor?
The governor, yes,
Okay.
for the Ambrella 30.
Angelo's putting his hand up.
Well, there's a lot of different models.
Yeah, Angelo says it's a lot of different models, so we'd have to do more specifics.
The Ambrella 30, which is right there.
Oh, yeah.
Can you take a picture of the motor and then maybe send that to me and we'll add in the newsletter.
Perfect, okay.
Why don't just put, go in touch with Angelo directly and they can.
If you ask them just to send a close-up photo of where the governor here meets with the part, then got a chance of,
Okay.
finding out what it is.
Okay, so Angelo's saying if you get a close-up photo of where the part is that's missing and send it to him, he could maybe help you with that.
I'll do. Okay, thank you.
Angelo's name is in the back of the newsletter all the time.
Got you.
He might be able to help.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Anyone else online looking for something? No? Okay. I talked about the next meeting. And I think that's about it. We can get started unless, are there any announcements that anyone wants to make? Guys are a quiet group today. Okay.
Hello.
Paul, they're all excited. They just can't wait for you. Sorry, someone online want to say something?
I was just gonna make a note that if there are any people who are interested in British machines, in St. Hyacinthe, Quebec, there appears to be a best tone console. If it is a Roberts best tone console, it will be as scarce as unicorn's tears. And it's on Facebook Marketplace. So I don't know if there's another company that existed with the same name, Best Tone. And the pictures aren't good enough to get a look at the the reproducer and stuff. But if anybody is interested in British machines, it could be a very rare opportunity. The price isn't entirely reasonable. I don't know unless it is super rare. I don't know, but an oddity.
Okay, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything, Paul? You're okay. Okay. Well, with that, then I guess we'll begin our presentation. Blaine, do you want the lights down at all? You're gonna be showing.
Yeah, I think. Or should I? Is that okay? Where should I stand?
Okay, hang on.
Oh, yeah.
It's just gonna take a minute to sort something out.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. Hi, Blaine.
All right, I think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good. Okay, I just want to,
Okay, yeah, good. I can look at that picture and see what's happening. Thank you. I'll try and talk loud, so as everybody can hear me. If you don't hear me at the back, start waving and I'll wave back. Paul and I actually started this presentation, I call it BC, before COVID. And so what I did back then before COVID was I wrote down, made up all my notes, got my slide presentation all done. And then put it away until present day. And then Mark asked if I would carry on. And this talk was initially following a 2-minute presentation, the 2-minute wax umbrella, 2-minute wax cylinder. And so, I'm going to, in this talk, I've added a little bit more to try and refresh a little bit about 2 minutes. So, and next one, I guess maybe we'll do the 4 minutes. So, and I have to say that before I do this, that really a lot of this, the structure for all this, what we talk about is from Paul. And Paul is explaining to me why this is important and why that isn't important. So I went back and did as much research as I could. So the other point is because I did this and wrote it up about 3 or 4 years ago, I've forgotten it. So I'm going to be reading it. So please excuse me if I bow my head and just read. So the picture you see behind me there is the 5 basic cylinders that came out. And it was only these 5 particular, these 5 cylinders. That's all of the 4-minute wax umbrellas. And we'll talk about every one of them as I go through the talk. Okay. First of all, we have to understand why Edison got into the 4-minute wax umbrellas. The first person was Mr. Dyer. He's the business manager of the Edison plant. He urged Edison to develop discography phonograph technology to compete with the Victor Talking Machine Company, as most of the customers at the time were starting to all go over to the Victor machines. But it wasn't until can we bring up the next one? So yep. It wasn't until the main competitor, Columbia, brought out the long 20th century talking machine record cylinder that was playable for 3 minutes. And that was done in 1905. Then Edison's response was to issue a new black wax record, the Ambrola record, that fit the standard Edison mandrel, but had the micro grooves to play 4 minutes. So what I'm showing in the picture right here is just a comparison between the last of the Edison gold molded and the Columbia 3-minute cylinder. If you have, by the way, any of these long 6-inch Columbias, they're pretty rare, pretty valuable. And if you do find one, odds are it's going to be moldy. But even if you find a box or even if you find a moldy one and you can get it for a reasonable price, you should try and buy it. And go to next. So no. Although Edison does not release his 4-minute wax Ambrola record until 1908, I thought it was interesting to show this phonograph store picture from 1907 in New York. Many of the offerings are cylinder machines and a complete wall of 2-minute Edison wax cylinders. I believe in the very front and center is the Columbia model BG with a 6-inch mandrel. We're playing the 3-minute wax cylinders. By 1907, Edison's business associates do not share his enthusiasm or the supremacy of the Edison cylinder. The spectacular gains of the Victor Company have not gone unnoticed. In 1907, it's a pivotal year for the recording industry. The National Phonograph Company had its best year selling 7.5 million 2-minute wax records. But the competition has arrived. Victor releases good quality 10 and 12-inch red seal single-sided records with popular recording artists that can play 3 and 4 minutes. But they sell for $1.25 a piece. Edison responds with the Grand Opera 2-minute cylinder. And that's, you can see it in front of the home model there. And he was selling that for 75 cents. At this point, Columbia is not able to produce a good quality cylinder or a disc record yet. You can buy an Edison Model Home machine or a Victor Model B, Victor Model 2 for approximately $30. My question is, which would you choose? Can I have a show of hands? What do you want? Think back to 1907.
They have ability, you're saying that someone.
Victor? Okay, how many Victors? Okay, how many Edisons? Ooh, see?
Yeah, but they know what's gonna happen.
They know what's gonna happen. Yeah, so that Edison figured that out. That's not a big deal. During, funny thing, during COVID, when I was writing up all this talk and putting it together, then I went and made some home videos, and maybe we'll play them later. They would be shown on America's Funniest Videos if I showed them. So I did some comparison and recording. Maybe later I'll play it. Hindsight is 20/20 vision. So before we talk about the 4-minute wax Ambrol records, I just wanted to mention the celluloid cylinders that were available to the recording industry at that time. Edison actually filed a caveat with the patent office to develop a celluloid cylinder as early as 1888, and he applied for a patent in 1898, but the patent office never finished his approval. Thomas Lambert of Chicago, using a copper mold, did get his patent approved in 1899, and by 1900, the Lambert Company began production. Highly sought after by collectors for the bright pink color or black, these were the first celluloid cylinders made. After many years of ongoing litigation with Edison, the Lambert Company filed for bankruptcy in 1906. Subsequently, the patents were bought by a group of businessmen that started the Indestructible Record Company, which in turn was bought by Columbia in 1908. Edison still believed in the superiority of the wax cylinder. It did not re-enter the celluloid market until 1912. Okay. This is a picture of Jonas Walter Aylesworth. He was the chief chemist. He was first entrusted by Edison in 1887 to develop a solid wax cylinder, and it was patented in 1888. He also developed a harder black wax cylinder composition and the gold electroplating process that was used on the Edison gold molded cylinders. In 1907, although heavily involved with the graphite plating on Edison's alkaline batteries, he was called upon again to develop an even harder wax cylinder that could withstand the added stylus pressure required for the new wax Ambrol cylinder. The new cylinder recorded at 200 turns per inch instead of the 100 turns per inch required a finer thread and a heavier stylus to produce the same playback stylus sound level with an increased playing time of 4 minutes. Unfortunately, the new wax would be too brittle and fragile and would prematurely wear from the heavy sapphire stylus. But not to be discouraged, he went on to develop and patent a harder recording material called condensite, a mixture of phenol and formaldehyde for the Edison diamond disc records. His work for these interpenetrating polymers came decades later, before other scientists made similar discoveries, and that was called plastic. So, quite an intelligent man. He was 10 years ahead of all the other scientists in the plastic field. In 1908, in November, Edison will release the 4-minute wax ambrol cylinder. But before we leave the 2-minute cylinder, I wanted to mention a few things. Also in 1907, the gold molded process was changed to using graphite instead of gold in the electroplating process. This was Aylesworth again. Also, Aylesworth is changing the composition of the wax cylinders. The box immediately to the right, the ambrol box, was issued in 1907. The gold molded has been dropped from the label to be just called Edison Record. The 2-minute wax cylinders will continue until 1912, with the last issue, 10,575, the skeleton rag, in a box simply labeled Edison Standard Record. It seems to me that those last cylinders in the 10,000 matrix series are excellent recordings and don't seem to be as susceptible to the mold. So if you find these, you'll usually find these in good condition. So when you're searching through a box of cylinders and you can see a high serial number above the 10,000, I'd really grab it if I were you, because it'll probably be a good recording and it'll be in good condition. Because by this time, Aylesworth has a stronger wax. Ambrol Record. Where does that name come from? Some of the names considered were amber, amberite, ambrol, besanol, cerol, ebonite, ebonol, 4-minute, and palm oil. So I can't spell the 4-minute because they spelled it pretty weird. And I thought the palm oil sounded like soap. So, but given those choices, I would have chosen either the first two. Which names do you think you would have chosen? I don't know, I read them off quickly, but you'd all choose ambrol, right? So why amber? Why, I often thought, why did they pick amber anyways, considering they had diamond disc too? So the amber, that the amount of research I could find was that because at that time, in that Victorian time, amber was a material that people liked and cherished. It was available on cigarette holders, umbrella handles. So it was really a nice material that people liked. So I think that's why, from what I could gather, is why it got called that name.
May I interject
Yep.
something here? And it may also have been that amber was used as part of the amplifying equipment on the Columbia BC.
Oh,
which
yeah.
Started out.
Yeah, they were using that in these for
Yeah.
for the mechanical
That's right.
magnifying amplifying machine. That was an amber wheel, right? Yeah. That's another whole science, which you'd have to have Paul explain that one. FK Bobson is a company. They have a beautiful catalog, so I thought I'd throw a few pages of this in. They have a beautiful catalog. They brought it out just at the time Edison was changing to 4-minute. So, but I thought I'd show a few of these pictures. The catalog came out 1909. Babson was out of Chicago, but I believe, I'm pretty sure of it, they had a large distributor up in Winnipeg as well. So for our Western collectors out there, everybody in Toronto here, we always see, what's this?
R.S. Williams.
Yeah, R.S. Williams labels on there. So I wonder if the Babson shows up there. I've seen it in the States, but not in Canada. So the most sweeping improvement in phonographs undertaken in many years. There are two styles of Edison records, playing the shorter selections, priced at $4.20 a dozen, and the longer selections, $6 a dozen. So those first 4-minute ambrols were $6 a dozen. Okay. So this is one of the things I thought I'd bring up. Yeah.
Blaine, just, it took me a second to find it, but back in June, when I sent out the meeting announcement, I sent out a little
bit of ephemera from the North Bay Nugget dated December 1909. And
Ah.
it says, what amberol means.
Oh,
Would you like to know what that?
yeah, please read it. I didn't find that.
When Edison Amberol 4-minute records were first brought by the National Phonograph Company, many people expected to see transparent records like the amber that pipe stems and side combs are made of.
Yeah.
The National Phonograph Company assert, however, that the name Amberol has nothing whatsoever to do with the composition of the record,
Yeah,
but it simply is in reference to the amber-like clearness and purity of tone that these records give in reproducing music of all
yeah,
time.
that's from marketing. That's the marketing
that's
department.
good.
Yeah, ask the engineering department.
Okay.
So, I think I know I'm preaching to everybody, you already know about this, but nobody collects and nobody wants the 4-minute wax cylinders. But there's a lot of good stuff came out of that. And even though you as collectors may not have many of these green boxes, I bet you all have a Model H stylus and a Model H reproducer. And if not for that, we probably wouldn't even have any 4-minute. So. In the autumn of 1908, Edison released the first 4-minute reproducer to coincide with the new Amberol cylinder. It was similar to the 2-minute Model C, but with a flat-edged sapphire stylus with a smaller tip radius of 4.5 thou that ran on its edge so that it would fit in the fine Amberol cylinder groove. The reproducer was fitted with a corrugated copper alloy diaphragm, and the top plate was stained green for easier recognition. So I didn't have one. This is the only one that I had, but many of you maybe have seen ones. They have like a green shellac on top of them. Sometimes it's worn off. Mine was totally worn off. So, but if you see that in the box, they were originally green. To accommodate owners of the existing 2-minute wax playing phonographs, the National Phonograph Company sold combination attachments to convert these machines to allow both the 2 and the 4-minute recording format. These were made available from 1908 to 1916. So, just a personal note, I have one of these kits and I have that instruction sheet. I've seen better Chinese translation instructions that maybe it's old English, but I really had trouble. It's about 2 pages long and very defined and very difficult to understand. This special series, the 4-minute Amberol cylinder, consisted of only 10 records numbered from A to I. These 10 tunes consisted of mainly older tunes that re-recorded in-house Edison performers for the new 4-minute format. When a customer bought a conversion attachment or traded in an older machine, they were given the 10 new 4-minute wax Amberol cylinders. These are easy to collect and find, and you can only need to find 10 to complete the series. Plus, you're going to need to get 10 again when he introduces the same series in almost an identical box, but they're blue Amberols. So if you see them out there, this is an easy one to collect. I've got quite a few collections of all 10. It's one of those things I got carried away, right? So it happens to all of us. The initial sales of the 4-minute wax Amberol cylinder were very strong. In 1909, Edison began a project to develop 8-minute cylinders, but it never materialized. Soon, the complaints began to roll in. The new H reproducer with a heavier stylus pressure was there wearing down the records prematurely, and dealers were complaining about increased breakage. The broken cylinders were returned to the National Phonograph Company and were remelted to make more cylinders. Many of the green box Ambrose cylinders, they're numbered from 1 to 1,149, were merely old 2-minute popular issues re-recorded with an added verse or piece of music to extend the playing times. It was in 1909 that Edison production of the fireside phonograph, similar to existing machines, but capable of 2- and 4-minute format and with a K reproducer. By 1910, the sale of the Edison phonographs was sinking fast. In July of 1910, the Edison sales department, more marketing here, Bill, they devised a promotion plan to help increase sales. A special Ambrose record series of 24 records listed from D1 to D24 in an orange container would be available to the dealers at a cost of 20 cents each. These could not be resold, but any 6 would be given to a customer that effects the sale of a new Edison phonograph. So if you brought in a friend and said, hey, my friend here is going to buy one of your new Edison machines, you were awarded 6 of these, any 6 out of the 24. And that's how they were given out. An allowance of approximately 3 cents was given to cover replacement and possible breakage. A lot of them broke. I think the promotion was not as successful as the blue special series because these cylinders are a lot harder to find. You'll find the brown you'll find the orange box quite frequently, but to date, I haven't even found an orange cylinder box with the proper record inside. From adversity comes innovation. During 1910, the signet horn on the phonograph was a big improvement on the quality of the sound, louder and clearer. Among big advancements was in the recording industry. Previously, the glass diaphragm used in the recorders had been mounted between rubber rings. Now, I'm talking about the recorders, okay? It was discovered to use viscous damping, whereby the edges of the diaphragm are floated in a semi-fluid. The improvement in quality captured the smaller transients, ambience, and sibilants, meaning you can now hear the S from an operator singer's voice. The new recording process will produce some of the best quality cylinders that were made by the National Phonograph Company. Many people say that Edison concentrated on and I changed the terminology here, concentrated on Black folk songs, marches, and harp songs. In reality, some of the best recordings from Edison came during the period of the 4-minute wax Ambrose records. In 1910, Thomas Edison hired an Irish-born noted composer, Victor Herbert, to be a musical advisor and critic for the Edison Company's recording activities. Meanwhile, Johann Strauss III in Berlin signed major European artists and opera companies to record on Ambrose cylinders. If the foreign recordings are included with the popular record catalogs as a whole, you would find a wealth of serious music performed and sung by artists who were never, ever recorded elsewhere. Only half of these recordings exist today. In particular is the French-Canadian numbered 11,000 series. A regret is that Edison never recorded Enrico Caruso. The Grand Opera cylinder with Edison's gold molded 2-minute records and continued into the 4-minute wax format. Mostly operatic and classical, many of the world's famous singers at the time were recorded here. The B series was listed from B150 to B175, 30,000, 35,000, and 40,000 block numbers. The title etched in the end of the cylinder was colored blue to distinguish it from the normal Ambrol cylinder. The cylinder box was felt lined with a matron with a maroon color. The box itself was further encased in another box labeled Edison Grand Opera cylinder. I only have one of these and only part of a case. I try and hold this up. This is it. I only have part of the case because these would have normally been thrown away. Yeah, it's up there. No. I'll show you.
I just wanted to switch so that people could see what you do.
Yeah. I don't, oh, you can't see me? Oh, that's good.
Walk up there.
Oh. No.
You're out.
I'll just describe it. The white cardboard box went over top of the maroon box and would slip on. So this is how it was actually shipped out of the factory. Went over top.
No, I meant go back to playing in the room so that people at home can see.
This is, yeah. This is how it would have been shipped out.
Yeah.
That's it there, so. This is the maroon cylinder, but when it was shipped out of the Edison factory, this white case was over top of it. And of course, when somebody bought it, you threw this away. The last 4-minute wax Ambrol series that would be released was the concert series. Number 28,001 to 28,040. The box was a dark blue with gold lettering. The lettering on the cylinder rim was gold to distinguish it from the other cylinders. These cylinders had the same faults, and the higher fidelity achieved in the recording process was soon lost after just a few playings of the record, as the fine undulations in the wax wore down quickly. However, all is not lost. Edison discovered that when they developed the celluloid cylinder, the 4-minute wax mold could be directly used to make submasters or even directly for the new blue Ambrol cylinders. But several of the wax Grand Opera and concert records were reissued in the concert blue Ambrol series as well. I'll just read a little bit here. In 1909, here's another comparison. We'll get a show of hands again. In 1909, Edison and the company executive committee decided to compete with Victor's high-end Victrola 16. Shown in the picture here is actually a 17. With a high-end phonograph that would play the new 4-minute wax cylinders. Generally, both Victor or Edison phonographs would sell around $200. This is 1909, still a lot of money. Be a lot of money for me today too. Edison Marketing named it the Ambrola, and they're using the Ola suffix to denote an internal horn machine. Later manufacturers would use the same suffix. So Victrola, they used it as well. Later, manufacturers would use the same suffix. Herzog made the first cabinets, but due to delivery and quality issues, the Edison plant contracted the Pooley Furniture Company to delivery and to produce the next order of cabinets. The first machines were simply Ambrola. Then in 1910, with the pulley cabinet, the Ambrola A1 was issued with both 2-minute and 4-minute combination using a combination Model L reproducer. By 1911, the model changed to an Ambrola B, a machine that only played 4-minute and used a Model L reproducer. Subsequently, they went back to the Diamond A reproducer. So that's the end that I have so far of the 4-minute wax. Any quick questions that I can try and answer? Yeah.
I had a quick question. I remember down, mid '70s, I guess, down New York State, going in a collector's place who had an Amberola, but it was a credenza, or I guess you call it credenza, like a floor model, but it wasn't an upright, it was flat. Yeah.
Yeah, a credenza type, so.
Yeah, I've never
heard
heard these things, or,
I've never heard of that.
but it was a cylinder machine. It wasn't a diamond disc. It was a cylinder machine,
Okay,
and had the top that flipped off in the middle, and all the rest of it. It was like a desk.
Okay.
Just wonder if these things existed or
The
not.
only one I've seen is that the 4-minute cylinder machine was put into a Victrola. That's another Victrola label on it.
Oh.
There's a mechanism inside there.
No.
yeah, I was gonna say, Don, I've seen the same thing. I've seen a credenza model. When you opened it up, there was an Edison Standard sitting on the motorboard, so I didn't buy it.
It's an Amberola, but you know.
Yeah,
like,
so, yeah, I can say, I
I've
don't.
never seen another one. Maybe a good
Okay.
thing.
I'm through with my presentation. Paul, Paul was gonna talk about some of the special opera singers and some of the special records that you might want to look for when you're looking for your 4-minute wax.
Yeah, do you have the list there? Yeah,
In
yeah.
2 parts.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, there it
That's it. Has to square right off.
You might sit over here, is that
Yeah,
good?
okay, hold on, just gonna take me a minute to sort this out. Bill, can you see it? Okay. I don't know if everybody know who Paul Doddington is. Paul Doddington is one of the founding members of our club. So he's been here since the start.
18, what was it, 18?
1876. Yeah,
So Paul, what are you gonna talk about?
I wanted to talk a bit about the panoply of artists. And so I made a sample listing. This is just a sampling of artists who recorded on these things. And they're some of the most amazing people, and their records are fantastic. And many of them were reproduced later and put on a blue amber. When you hear the blue amber recordings, you find out how well these were made. You can hear the sibilance very, very easily. The wax amberals never played very well, even when they were brand new, because you could not put enough weight on the stylus. I don't know whether you've ever seen the styli for these 2 and 4-minute cylinders. They were doorknob shaped things. Okay, and if you can imagine just an old fashioned doorknob, and for the 2-minute records, it would be like plowing a field with a doorknob, and it would leave, you've got a U-shaped groove. So the way they managed to fiddle it for the 4-minute records to get 200 threads per inch, those original ones would have run into each other because the grooves were too wide. So they made a new doorknob shaped stylus, but instead of dragging it along like that, they turned it sideways so that you were using the edge. You know, an old fashioned doorknob is narrow from front to back. So you would use that narrow thing, and of course it was a bit longer, so the the unit pressure would be modified a little bit because the length of it was longer than the width. You understand what I'm saying? So that was how they did it. And the interesting people that recorded it on these things, it was just amazing. This is just a sampling list. But if you ever get a chance to hear any of these artists when they were converted over to the celluloid, it's unbelievable. You can hear these people breathing. I mean, the recording techniques and the whole thing had to do with the viscous diaphragm mounting that Edison had. Nobody else had this. And when you read the articles that were written in comments later in the 1920s by some of the artists who recorded for Victor and Columbia and for Edison, they invariably said it was easy in the Edison recording studio. I didn't have to wreck my voice. I could sing in a normal tone of voice and it would record. When I went to the Victor studio, I had to yell. And if you listen to any of the early Marion Harris records made, 1916, 17, you listen to her voice and you can hear her voice cracking because she's maybe on take 3 or something and she's blown herself by this time. And her voice is cracking and you can hear it on those records. You don't hear that on these. So particularly for the female artists, I see a lot of female artists on here. Going up from the bottom, Irene Franklin, great comedian. She did kids songs like I've Got the Mumps and I'm a Bringing Up the Family. Wonderful song that she made famous on Broadway. You don't hear these people. I know that Irene Franklin made some Columbia, but they're nowhere near as good as the cylinders that she made. Lottie Gilson, Anna Chandler, she was a torch singer from very early, and a good one too. Maud Rim, Stella Mayhew, very, very famous Broadway artist. Marie Dressler from Coburg, Ontario. She made 2-minute wax, and also she appeared on these, but they usually break down because her voice was so loud and raucous. That was the first thing that broke down, were the her powerful notes. You get people like Edgar Davenport. He did recitations, very good. Yeah, Bessie Wynn, Edith Chapman, Edward Meeker. You hear a lot of Edward Meeker because he's the guy that announces all the 2-minute cylinders. He's that guy that you hear all the time. And sometimes he announces a cylinder and then he performs on it. So that's an interesting thing that a lot of people don't know about that guy. Mabel McKinley, Grace Cameron, Ray Cox, the baseball girl. She made Victors. She was a comedian. I think that was the only records that she was ever famous for. She's describing a baseball game. It's a very active and amazing. So she was on Purple Label Victors around 1909. So the interesting thing was that this catalog, they produced, they had this series of records available 1908. They didn't start recording them in 1908. They started recording them way earlier than 1908 because they knew that they were going to make them at this certain pitch. So I know that they started making records for this catalog as late as 1906, as early as 1906. So some of the recordings artists here were recorded early. One of the things that very few people know is that Reinhold Warenroth, who was a very famous Victor artist, he was of Danish descent. His father had come over to the United States, but Reinhold was born in the United States. He started his career by making cylinders for Edison. And he made 2-minute cylinders and 4-minute cylinders. He made them during a period from September 1907 to December 1907, because in January 1908, Victor signed him up as an exclusive artist for Red Label. So he started out on cylinder records. I have one of them. It's a 2-minute cylinder. It's very interesting cylinder, because when you look at it, you think this cylinder doesn't look like other cylinders that I know of, and it's got a 8,000, I think, serial number, which puts it as being recorded in 1904. It wasn't recorded in 1904. It was recorded in that 4-month period between September 07 and December 07. And it was recorded as a 2-minute record to replace a recording that was sold in Canada called The Maple Leaf Forever by W.H. Thompson, who had recorded it in 1904. So a lot of people think that Reinhold Warenroth was recording as early as 1904 on cylinders. He wasn't. All the records that he made were in that 4-month period before he became exclusive for Red Seal Victor. So that's a kind of an interesting thing that most people don't know about. And there's just been a reissue last year of most of Reinhold Warenroth's recorded legacy and CD, and then a lot of recordings of it. It's 2 discs. I have it. It's very, very good. But even in the liner notes for that, they make the mistake of saying that it was 1904 that this was recorded. And so what they were doing was replacing the 1904 record with this one. It is the Maple Leaf Forever with different words. It says, the lily, thistle, shamrock, rose, and twine. The lily is in it for the first time. That's for Quebec. It's the fleur de lis. So question is, when they recorded that cylinder, was it in response to the fact that French Canadians hated that cylinder? Because they're talking about days of yore from Britain shore, Wolf the Dot was hero king? Maybe so, and maybe they figured that by putting the lily in there, that they would sell more cylinders to French Canadian audience. Who knows? Or was it Reinhold Warenroth who was sensitive to the political nature of this cylinder? And it was he who decided to change the words. We're never going to know that, but it's an interesting conjecture anyway. So he is on 2-minute wax, but the interesting thing is that the 2-minute wax that I have is 1912 wax. It's the hard wax that doesn't go moldy. So that's very interesting. And it's got a sloping edge on it, but it looks different. It's a funny looking thing. So the mold that they made it from is different in some way. Anyway, this is a very interesting list of people. And a lot of these people never made records for anybody else. And many of them, there are some, yes, there was another.
Oh, do you want the other list?
Yeah, put the other list on, the operatic list. If you can get it. Here's some of the classical opera singers. Now, some of this stuff that I said was recorded in Europe, I was wrong about that. It's not Europe. Yeah, and a lot of those artists had already come over to the United States. but many of them are. Hensel is one of them. Henry Hensel, he's in there someplace. Yeah, about halfway down. He's German. He was recorded in Germany because Edison at this period was sending people all over the continent making records. And half of this stuff is gone now. But you see, we've got treasure house of stuff this was. And it's just too bad that Edison was so stubborn about the fact that somebody had pilfered away his ideas on using celluloid, that he would not pay to get his own idea back. He was a stubborn bugger, you know. That's the way Edison was. And in the end, it destroyed the very thing that he loved. And in the end, it turned out that they never, ever made money off any of the diamond disc records that they sold. The whole thing was a total loss. By that time, it was Thomas A. Edison Incorporated. So all of his other things that were, you know, making concrete homes and all, were supporting the recording division. And after about 1912, the recording division was a total loss the whole time. So that's kind of interesting, you know. And anyway, if you ever find any of this stuff, you know, it's good. There's good stuff on it. It's hard to get it out. And it's hard to find the records, especially Maria Galvani, temperamental Spanish coloratura soprano. She died in 1918. She made some fabulous 14-inch Pathé records. Wonderful singer. She's a coloratura, very temperamental, got Spanish influenza. Where did the influenza first show up in Europe? In Spain. It got her right off the bat. She was one of the first to die. So, Leo Slezak, the operatic tenor, they were very lucky to get him because he was a very good artist and made fantastic either diamond discs, because they record in both formats, cylinder and diamond disc. What's happened to the masters? I don't know. Victor Herbert got so upset with Edison's meddling in his choice of artists that he walked out. He fired himself in 1911. He started in early 10, I think. And so you'll find that during his time as being the sort of the musical director, that's when a lot of the really good stuff got recorded. And then as soon as he got into some argument with Edison, because Edison's taste was all in the seat of his pants, I think. You know, although Edison was right about some things, he did not like vibrato, because that he could hear that, and there were waverings. And there's one recording that was made on a recording of a horn quartet, called horn, I think it was, and the Edison realized that one of the players on this, I think French horn player, was wavering. The tone was wavering. And most people didn't notice that. So a lot of Edison's criticisms were perfectly legitimate criticisms, but he was hearing the bad part and he didn't understand the artistry. And that was the sad part. So anyway, there's wonderful stuff in this collection of stuff. Sarah Bernhardt, of course, everybody knows who she was, wonderful singer. And a lot of the rest of them, Florencio Constantino, tenor, he always insisted on announcing his own recordings, whether they were made early or late. And he announced himself. He wouldn't make a record unless he himself announced it verbally. So this was going on even after 1912. So these are interesting characters on these things. So, I don't know. I can go on forever. Kathleen Parlow, very important artist, Canadian. When the Titanic sank, she was playing in New York and in Carnegie Hall, I think it was. She was probably the top female violinist in the world. She's Canadian, born in Fort Calgary, Alberta, but brought up in San Francisco, where she had a lot of her training. Her teacher was Leopold Auer in St. Petersburg. And she was given a huge amount of money by what was his name? Smith, who was the guy that drove the spike from the last spike in the railway. Yeah. And he gave her the money to study with Howard. And when she came out of there, she would have been the top violinist in the world. All of us were a woman. So all she got billed as was a really good female violinist. In this collection here today, you'll find one of the 2 cylinders that she made on 4-minute wax ambrels in the week following the sinking of the Titanic. And while she was in New York, she put on a benefit concert for the survivors of the Titanic. And while she was there, going from one place to another, she got whisked into the upstairs recording studio in the Edison Studios in New York City, where she cut 2 cylinders. And one of them is here. And if anybody is smart, they'll buy the box that has her cylinder in it, because it's one of the finest recordings that she ever made. I have a lot of her other records, including diamond discs that she made electrically in the late 20s. They don't hold a candle to this thing, but you gotta play it on a good machine. And an opera isn't good enough because it has too many bends in the horn that cut down the high frequency sounds. The only one that's any good is a signet horn, with a diamond A reproducer. No curves in them, just very gentle curves. And you get the proper sound, and it'll blow you away with this sound like. So anyway, I should shut up and. They've got Elsie Baker in there before she made any victors, She ended up with a red seal artist by the late 20s. Yeah.
I see you have Ricardo Martin,
Yep,
Richard Martin. He's no more Italian than I am.
that's right. He was an American.
Yes, we call ourselves Ricardo
Yeah.
Martin.
So he had to do that in those days.
I guess. so.
Eduardo Giovanni, Edward
Edward
Johnson
Johnson.
from Canada.
Yes,
He did the same thing. He had to. That's what you had to
but I
do.
do have one of those black ones by Martin up there, and then he made some records for Victor too,
Yes,
as well.
a lot of these people did later on go on
Yeah.
to do that.
Ricardo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Ricardo.
Yeah, that's right. Now, you could go on and on forever, but I don't want to bore you in. It's a long thing. Okay.
Right up. Bravo, bravo.
Bueno,
Yes. Bravo.
space.
Right.
Well, do we have any questions for our presenters on what they've covered?
Actually, I have more of a comment. When you were talking about the 2-minute gold molded cylinders, and you said they took the word gold molded off and they went to some other method.
Yeah, graphite molded.
Yeah, what happened was Edison was sued in New York. And in the lawsuit, he lost and he had to stop using gold.
Oh.
And since it was only in New York, he decided he had to do it all over.
Yeah.
And eventually the suit was overturned, but the suit also included something about the end gate on the machine. You open the end gate to put the cylinder on.
Oh, yeah.
He lost that patent as part of that. So he immediately had to come out with the Model C. All Edison Model C machines are made in response to that loss. So they all have the end gate removed. That was as a result. And then about a year later, it was overturned. So he could have done that, but at that point it was too late.
Yeah.
I have a question. Tom here in Saskatoon. About the recording, I was almost said recording reproducer, but recording the disc with what was the viscous, what did you mean by the viscous? Was that
It was a secret,
oh,
and I'd love to know how they did it, but it was viscous could mean like a very heavy grease or something like that. But it allowed the diaphragm to move freely, and that's how they caught the sibilants. That was the whole thing. That's why Edison's records, he started that, he came up with that idea about 1904. It was very early, and they kept refining it as time went on. And they were still refining it during the middle of the 4-minute wax amber period. There's a difference between the early ones and the later ones, which is odd.
Paul, I remember you talking once about dambarolas.
Yeah.
I don't know if they fit into this. Could you explain what a dambarola is?
Yeah, the British were the first ones to notice it because Edison had a great following in England. In fact, the City of London Phonograph and Gramophone Society was originally that sort of the Edison Institute to start with, where people interested in cylinders and what Edison was putting out. Now, they had pretty good musical taste over there. And as soon as they heard the first dubbed ambarols, they called them gambarols, which I think is wonderful. It says everything. And you were right. And the only time they sound any good is when you play them on an Ambarola 30 or 50 or 75, because the horns are totally inadequate on those things. They're not exponentially shaped. And you don't hear the, there's enough machinery noise that covers it up.
So they were dubbed from diamond discs. The recordings were first made on diamond discs.
That's right. And they were very careful at first because you don't hear it. This was really before they got into big trouble with the awful surfaces for condensate. So I think some of them were probably formed on celluloid so that they would be softer. And the thing about the blue ambarols was that the blue dye hardened up the celluloid and made it able to withstand like 3,000 plays on the diamond to reproduce it. Somebody made a mistake around 1913, and instead of using that dye, they used some other thing that was water soluble, and it came off. And sometimes you'll see a blue amberol record with all the surface worn right off. They sound terrible. All
The pink lamberts were the same. That was a chemical added to paint them, to make them stronger.
So I think that blue dye, I think Edison did a lot of experimentation with how much of that you had to use to get the best surface. And in that period from 1912 to 14, if you get the good cylinders, and there's one in there, Kathleen Parlow in there, and it's made of the right stuff. Somebody wants to get that, they'll have a really good cylinder where you'll hear.
So you're saying there's a real gem in one of those
There
boxes?
is.
There is. Okay.
Yes, there is. So that one's worth a fortune. It's good. You'll hear Kathleen Parlow better than you'll ever hear her. And
So that's the one you're gonna be bidding on?
no, I haven't.
Oh, we already. Okay.
Yeah,
I had a question come to mind when I saw some of what you flashed up there. It sounds like they changed the composition from the 2-minute to the 4-minute. And the 2 minutes are known for having mold on them. Was mold a problem at the time? Or was
Yes.
that just years
right
later?
from the beginning.
Really?
Yeah, they had trouble. Yeah, that was very early. And rising temperatures, they would melt certain things would come out as the mix,
Oh.
and they'd bleed. So that's why they don't have those white wax things. They didn't last very long because they didn't last very long. That was the thing. I guess you'd have to keep them. I've done recordings on days using wax cylinder that I have made, And then they've been recorded in days when the temperature was about 75 degrees Fahrenheit when they was recording them. They make the most fabulous records because the wax is softer and it takes impressions easier. So that's why you have a room that's all closed off. It's hot in there where they're making the records. So the whole studio's had a room that was closed off. They have to keep the heat in. So that's why. It's perfectly simple.
Oh, you're a wealth of knowledge.
There's questions about
Question.
that back.
This one, it's a little bit hard to read.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Where is it? I'll pull it back up during the break.
Okay,
You done?
anyone else? Anyone online want to comment?
Yeah, I have something else to say.
Tom, go ahead.
Somebody mentioned the pink Lamberts, and on Mark Caruna Dingley's YouTube thing, he was talking about pink Lamberts once, and he mentioned the coating that was put on them that was maybe used to keep some of that surface noise down. So I wondered if anybody knew what that coating was and if it could be used to maybe rescue really worn records that have a lot of surface noise, just to make them, you know, some sort of coating to put on them just to make them playable without being too awful. Anybody? Any comment?
I don't know what it was.
Paul Baker actually knows. He's the one who mentioned it to me. That's what I thought it was,
It could
phenol.
be, yeah. It's a purpose.
Yeah, I think that's what it is, phenol.
So I guess Tom's question is, could you just sort of brush it onto a cylinder?
That's actually a really interesting idea. I don't know.
Well, you know that a lot of them are repressed. You'll see the pencil numbers inside and they're all scratched out.
Yeah.
Those records were returned, put in the molds again.
Huh?
Oh, were they?
That's the game. Yeah, so that's how, someone, you can actually hear the old record. It didn't quite, maybe with the inflatable bag that they put in there.
Yeah.
But they didn't scratch out the old numbers. So you take a look, many ornaments you'll find have pencil numbers on the inside. But they've been taken back to Lambert's and repressed, remolded. And sometimes a bit of the old one can be heard through it. Because they didn't use enough heat or something.
So I forgot, I missed what that coating was. Did someone say?
Phenol.
Phenol, okay.
I think so.
Okay, that's it, Tom?
Over to ice
Yeah.
cubes.
Okay. So if there's no further questions, we'll take a break now. And for those of you online, Mike, you're gonna go around with your camera and describe what's there.
Talk to you about what's on the auction tables. And then we'll start the auction in about 20 minutes.
Okay. Thank you.